This is Michael Popok, and it must be time for Legal AF After Dark. Witnesses cooperating with the government in the Mar-a-Lago prosecution against Donald Trump are not waiting around to see what federal judge Cannon is going to do with whether she's going to release their names to the media. Some of them, including those closest to Donald Trump, who know where all the bodies are buried, or at least the boxes are buried, related to Mar-a-Lago and the hiding of confidential, classified, top secret documents from the American people. They're going on network television and giving interviews. What am I talking about? Somebody that was only identified in the indictment in Mar-a-Lago as employee number 5 is now giving interviews on CNN, and they're all against Donald Trump, including his testimony or his interview position that he not only helped Donald Trump move the boxes, but he put him in the back of an SUV and then eventually loaded them on an airplane all the way over to Bedminster in New Jersey. We'll break it all down right here. Take a listen to the most recent edition of Legal AF. Somebody jumped out of the woodwork and decided he didn't want to wait around for Judge Cannon to decide whether his name was going to be released to the public. He's decided to give an interview to CNN himself. We have employee number 5 from the indictment who's decided to come forward and say, there he is there, say that he was involved with the movement of boxes. He didn't know exactly what they were, but he describes in vivid detail moving them out of Mar-a-Lago at Donald Trump's direction, putting them in the SUVs, putting them in airplanes, going back and forth between Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster or New York. And all that came out, and the timing of it, I think, is just exquisite, right before the hearing that's going to be this week, tomorrow, in front of Judge Cannon, about whether she's going to dismiss any aspect of the indictment based on some of the arguments raised by Donald Trump and others about the appointment of Jack Smith and how his budget is being paid for, if that was properly done, and some other aspects, some vagueness aspects of the indictment they're claiming because, well, I had some type of security clearance when I left office. I had a Q clearance with the Energy Department. Also, there's a Presidential Records Act law civilly. And so those two things create a vagueness in me about what I was allowed to do and not do. What does it have to do with the levels of deception and overt acts that are listed in the indictment and the use of the various employees at Mar-a-Lago to hide the documents from the government, from the National Archive, from Donald Trump's own lawyers, and the counseling that went along with that? What does that have to do with anything? So, Karen, what did you make of the testimony that's now come out on CNN? You take it from a prosecutor's standpoint about the strength of the case, impact on Judge Cannon, and what do you think Judge Cannon's going to do with our little crystal ball here off the hearing on Friday?
Look, normally I would say witnesses shouldn't come out and go on TV, right? It would really bother me as a prosecutor. You don't want them out there. He's not prepped. You don't know what he's going to say. He can be cross-examined by his statements. But in this case, I give him a lot of credit. This was basically, he sees, this is just an average, regular person. He's not a lawyer. He's not a party to any of this. In fact, he was Mr. Carlos de Oliveira's one of his best friends. He was a long-term 20-year Trump employee. I mean, he's in the tent. He is in the, he is in there. He is a very much a Trump person. Yet at the same time, he absolutely could not bear letting these facts not come out before the election. And he sees what everybody else is seeing, which is that this trial is never going to go before the election, that Judge Cannon has absolutely no interest, even though she won't set a trial date and basically keeps that fake trial date on the calendar. But she hasn't ruled on half the motions that she's supposed to rule on. I mean, she hasn't ruled on her SIPA motions that on whether or not what can happen with the classified documents. And obviously, if she rules against the government, they can appeal that. So that would take time. So she's just taking her sweet time on that and ruling on that. And, there's like half the motions that have been filed are still waiting to be decided by her. And one in particular, the one that we're all waiting for to find out, is the one that Jack Smith asked her to reconsider about revealing everybody's names, because if she continues to require that, I'm sure Jack Smith will then finally move to have her recused and removed from the case because she has shown herself to be so impermissibly biased. But so he sees what the rest of us see, right? You don't have to be a lawyer or anybody else to see exactly what's happening. And he's like just a good Samaritan who says, look, it's time to come forward and let the voters see what they deserve to know. And so I give him a ton of credit. He was only known to us as Trump employee number 5 before. And he came and he spoke to Caitlin Collins on CNN, where I am a legal analyst. And he basically came out and said, first of all, it's not a witch hunt. And look, these guys were my closest friends, Walter Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira. And I was a 20-year employee, and I unknowingly helped Waltine Nauta deliver boxes from Mar-a-Lago to his airplane in June of 2022, the very same day that Trump and his attorney were meeting with the Department of Justice at Mar-a-Lago about classified documents. I mean, the same day they were literally hiding them, moving them, and secreting them away from the Department of Justice, who was trying to get them back and maybe give Trump the benefit of the doubt that he maybe made a mistake the same way Joe Biden did. If he's just given this stuff back the way Joe Biden did, because it was an accident, and if he lied and said this was an accident, because we all know now that it wasn't, but if he had just done that and said, oops, I didn't realize it, someone else packed up the boxes, we wouldn't be here. It's the fact that he tried to keep them and hide them and squirrel them away on his airplane, right? This is no different than any other criminal rushing and driving his car up in front of his house, and let's put the guns and the drugs and hide it, flush the drugs down the toilet and take the guns and the money and put it in the back of the trunk of the car and drive away before the police come.
I saw this. My wife and I just watched again Goodfellas when they were trying to crack down on Rayleigh. Karen!
Yes,
Karen!
Exactly. I know. That's exactly. And that's what this is. This is Goodfellas. But instead of drugs and guns, this is classified documents. I mean, you can't make this up the same day, right? Same day.
I used the metaphor analogy on one of my hot takes. It's not the cookie jar. It's that you got your hand caught in the cookie jar. Joe Biden had cookie jars. Trump had cookie jars. Pence had cookie jars. Obama didn't have any classified documents. It's not that they have them. It's that they get caught with their hand in them and trying to hide them. Joe Biden didn't. Her may not have liked the fact that he was that he had memory issues, but he couldn't claim that Joe Biden wasn't forthright and open, completely transparent about what went down. The only reason that Kerr was able to conclude that Joe Biden intentionally kept his diaries and intentionally kept a file of his about one aspect of the Obama administration policy that he disagreed with is because Biden told him. As opposed to this guy, which is using all of his henchmen, wittingly or unwittingly, and lawyers and maintenance workers and valets and butlers to, as you said, to just try to hide the incriminating evidence from the government knocking on the front door. And it's not even her how to say that those two things aren't close. Whether any of this is resonating or vibrating with Judge Cannon, that is yet to be seen. The problem we're watching with our American justice system is that sometimes we have people in the positions of being the trier of fact or the judge in the black robe that aren't qualified by dint of their experience, their background, their temperament, or all three, to be making some of the most momentous decisions in our legal and political history. I mean, we can't undermine, if the O.J. Simpson trial was the trial of that century, then any of these trials of a former president for the first time for criminal conduct for the first time in our republic, has to be up there. And who do we have making the decisions? Judge Chutkin, okay, 20 years on the bench, really, really seasoned, really experienced, firm hand on the tiller, right? That's fine. We've got Judge Merchan, very well qualified, on the bench a long time in New York, very sophisticated. Judge Engoron, I don't think anybody, you might not like him, but you can't criticize his length of service or the sophistication of the cases that he's handled, and how he handled those cases. Can't say the same thing for Judge Cannon, who was only on the bench 6 months at the time, literally 6 months at the time she got the case. And most of that was during COVID. So she had very little in front of her in a sleepy backwater division of the Southern District of Florida in federal court. And then you got Judge McAfee, who, yeah, I mean, on the day-to-day logistical stuff, we liked him. But frankly, he just got on the bench. This is his first major case. He had no other judicial experience. He's mid-30s. And we're watching, that's what we're watching. So some people commentate, people in our chat and from around the globe that watch our show are often like, how did that happen? Why didn't you pick the most experienced, seasoned, sophisticated, and proper temperamented judges to be the judges for these cases? Because that's not how our system works. It's a random wheel. It lands where it lands. Unless you do a little federal courts and state courts, some judge shopping, which is sort of coming to a close in federal court, fortunately. But that's it. And your Supreme Court is based on who you voted for president and who died or resigned or retired while that president is in office. Again, doesn't mean the rest of the world's always amazed. These are your two candidates for president. This is your Supreme Court. This is who you assign to cases. And the answer to that is yes, we're very messy as a constitutional republic. We really are. And we think that at the end of the day, jurors, because we have a tremendous jury process here, and jurors literally taken off the street, selected to come in by an adversarial process, are going to reach the right decision in criminal and civil cases, no matter how complicated. And we're generally right about that. We want the Supreme Court, whoever's on there, to do what's right and consistent with America and our values and our mores at a given time. And then those that time can't change. There should be some fundamental rights that don't change depending upon who's got the numbers on the United States Supreme Court, like privacy, woman's right to choose, bodily autonomy, civil rights, and the like. Okay, that's what we believe. But then we see the disconnect, and especially when it's being filtered through people who, frankly, would be on nobody's short list. If, when the kids pick a team to play pickup basketball or baseball or whatever, and let's be frank, Judge Cannon would be picked last. Scott McAfee would be picked last for this type of, you got a major championship game. These are not the LeBron James and Steph Currys. These are lowlights, maybe in 10 years, 15 years after they prove themselves. But this is our American justice system, right, wrong, or indifferent, and all of its warts and all. Well, there you go. If you like that kind of clip, we do about 4 of those every week, twice a week, on a show we call, wait for it, Legal AF, the podcast. It's on Wednesdays, it's on Saturdays, it's at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. It's the only place you can find it. We're exclusively theirs. And if you like what MeidasTouch is doing, this kind of content, go out and free subscribe. Use your thumbs and fingers and try to get them to 3 million free subscribers. You'll get this content and all the other programming and content right here on this network. Get it on YouTube, and then you can get it on audio podcast platforms of your choice, whatever you like. So if you know all about Legal AF, you're already part of the audience, that you're there for the 1 hour or so show every, twice a week. Great. We appreciate you. We really do, for being part of the audience. But take that clip. That's one of the purposes of Legal AF After Dark. Send it off to friends and family, people in your life, and say, hey, that podcast I like to listen to? Maybe you'd like it too. Take a listen, and maybe they'll join our audience. If you have no idea what I'm talking about or who I am, is that possible? I'm Michael Popok. That was Legal AF, and I invite you to join our audience. So, got a little excited. Until my next Legal AF, until my next hot take, this is an excited Michael Popok signing off.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.